In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The pressure on the Memphis-Shelby County School Board tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by two members of the Memphis-Shelby County Board of Education. Natalie McKinney, thank you for being here again.
Thank you for the invite.
Michelle McKissack, thank you for being here again.
Glad to be here.
Along with Laura Testino from the Daily Memphian. We'll talk through as much as we can today. There's a lot of news around the school system, a lot of news specific to the board. We had two members of the state legislature on the show now 2 weeks ago, Brent Taylor and Mark White, and they are leaders of an effort to start a takeover of the Memphis-Shelby County School Board, and to really limit the power in some form or fashion. They almost got it done the last session. They're going to bring it back up again. People can see that episode online. They also started a forensic audit of the school, of the school system. The county commission just last night, as we tape this, passed a preliminary committee vote that would shorten the terms of the school board members. And the former superintendent, in news that I think anybody who watches this show followed, is suing the system to get her job back, to get some severance money, some form or fashion. And that's the second superintendent in a row that left in unwanted, I think, from everyone's point of view, circumstances, in the sense that they were hired and then either compelled to resign or fired in the case of Marie Feagins. Where do you want to start in terms of how you guys grade yourself as a board and where you go from here? Natalie first?
I first want to say that, yes, to all of that. All of those things are happening. When you talk about grading ourselves, I think that I've been on the board for, 9 months or so, and this machination of the board, I think, is doing the work that it was designed to do. So I would say we're doing what we need to do, and sometimes it's not easy, but yet it still needs to be done. So I would say we're doing the work that we're charged with by statute and by our constituents.
No regrets over the last 9 months?
No.
Michelle, you've been on the board how long now?
I've served since 2018. I'm in my second term.
Yeah. How do you grade yourselves as a board, and yourself, I guess, if you want to go there, as a board member?
As a board member, I'm going to give myself an A. Because I show up, and I've been showing up for the last 7 years and just doing it for the community, for the children. As a school board, there's always room for improvement. I'm hesitant to actually give a letter grade, like the state gives letter grades to our schools, because it doesn't tell the whole story. And I'll just leave it at that. There's room for improvement, and some things I'm really proud of and some things that I'm not.
Well, before I go to Laura, regrets over the last year, regrets over the Feagin situation, regrets about it's not a situation you all wanted to be in.
No, without question. I think no one wanted to be here. I certainly didn't want to be at this point. I thought we had a superintendent who I was a part of bringing on to this administration, and I would have loved to have seen her have more time to show what she could do or could not do instead of the very short tenure that she was there.
And one more from me. And does that decision, in hindsight, make you think, well, maybe there's reason for the state to do some sort of takeover, some sort of more control?
I do not believe that it justifies at all the state coming in to take over the largest school district in the state. That's very problematic, and we can talk more about that, but no.
Okay, let's bring Laura in.
Sure. Just to kind of continue to discuss some of the churn that I think has caused some continuity struggles for the district, including for the board. One of those things is that the district has not really had an academic plan or strategic plan that is being regularly updated with kind of clear goals that are communicated to the community, communicated to parents. Where should the board accountability fall for that over the last, let's say, 5 years? With that churn, where do you take accountability on communicating or not what the academic goals are? Michelle, we can start with you.
It has been a very tumultuous period, and one that I'm certainly exhausted by. And so it's frustrating because I ran to serve on this board for the very reasons you stated, so that we can clearly speak to what academic plan is, how we're going to move forward as a district to help our students grow. And the last year plus has been a distraction on that, but I think we are at a point right now where we can focus on that. I'm fresh back from a Tennessee School Board Association conference where we're just talking about strategic plans. We have meetings coming up where the board, we're going to address that and look at what can we do to move forward academically as a district.
So having just run last year in August, that was one of my platforms, which is that we hadn't had a clear academic plan in 10 years. So I was very excited to get the position and was very excited to work with the then super administration to get that going. And that was stalled by some of the things that occurred this past year with the former superintendent. However, what I am extremely excited about is that our current superintendent, Dr. Rod Richmond, is doing everything we've asked him to do. We've asked him in February, I think it was in February, we had a board retreat. We asked him to do 3 very specific things. One of those things is to bring us a plan, an academic plan. The other thing we asked him to do is to begin to work on a facilities plan, which we are in the process of bringing together that facility, its ad hoc committee. And we asked him to be clear about accountability. So if you've been paying attention to the board meetings, we've been talking about how are you aligning all of these contracts, all the money that we're spending, and all of the programs to our 3 strategic priorities that we currently have. Sure. And like Board Member McKissack said, we are on the path of getting to our new goals since Destination 25 is here. Sure. and so we need to look at what our new goals need to be and how we need to strategize to get to those.
And, Eric has talked about what the county commission is planning to vote on, which would implement something that was passed at the state legislature this year, aligning all of your terms this upcoming summer, which certainly could throw, more change into a board that is, as you were describing, trying to stabilize. Board Member McKinney, since your term would be cut short, would you launch a legal challenge if the county commission were to approve this?
I think it's something that the board itself would have to think about. But I'll tell you what the challenges are, that they're very clear constitutional challenges. On its face, if you look at the Constitution, the state constitution, Article 11, Section 9, it clearly states that by its terms, it has to state that if you have to have a 2/3 vote or have a vote or referendum. That does not do that. It also clearly abridges term limits. It clearly abridges elected terms, which it clearly says you cannot do. It serves, I think it's also just discriminatory, arbitrary, and capricious in that it is only talking about Shelby County. We had 2 of our state representatives who sponsored it, and I'm asking the question, why isn't it applicable to the munis? So.
Sure. And Board Member McKissack, this wouldn't abridge your term. Would you support a legal challenge if the school district or any of your board colleagues were to launch one?
I would be supportive of that because, as my colleague mentioned, that this needs to be applied not just to Memphis-Shelby County schools, municipal school districts, and possibly even across the state, because it's not something that is unique to us. We've had some challenges that have been very public, perhaps at other school board members, but we're also the largest school board district, and that's why the spotlight is on us. But to say that we're going to make this drastic change and it only applies to this school district, that's not right.
And if I might interject around the discriminatory piece of it,
sure.
I need us to also not put our head in the sand. We're a predominantly black female board. And none of the other boards look like that in this particular county. So I have some concerns about why, particularly about the way we were referred to by our state colleague.
In the show 2 weeks ago. And again, people can get the video or the audio at Daily Memphian, at WKNO. You can get it as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts and listen to that. They were harsh on you both. I mean, and some would say we're ugly about it. obviously you're saying that's not deserved, but they also brought up TCAP scores, and TCAP scores being in Memphis-Shelby County schools, the old Memphis City schools, being historically the lowest or some of the lowest in the state. They were up this year, and we talked a lot about it, and Laura had good data on that, and people should watch that conversation and follow what she's been writing in Daily Memphian on this. But I guess I'll go to you first, Michelle. Your response to the low, if up from where they were, but still very low TCAP scores is what?
We're an extremely poverty-stricken city, and that comes into our school doors. And so when you take that, plus we are still rebounding from COVID, and all of that has an impact on it. You cannot operate in isolation and saying that, they're not educating our children. That's just simply not the case at all. It's like our children are coming to us with a lot of challenges that we have to deal with. Before we even get to educating them, we got to make sure they're fed. We got to make sure they have coats in the wintertime. I've actually been to homes where I went to go deliver a new laptop and supplies. They didn't even have power. I had to get on the phone to call to get their power turned back on with MLGW. So it's all of these factors that's not being taken into consideration. I know that our district educates our children. I've got 4 children in the district myself. When children have everything that they need, they're going to do well. My children did well, and that's the case for so many others.
Thoughts on the TCAP scores and the criticism?
Again, I think if you look at our trajectory over the past 4 years, we have been increasing. We have, but maybe not at the rate that people want to see, but to Board Member McKissack's point, we can only do what we can do when the student walks through our doors.
Yeah.
So we can't keep ignoring the fact that there are outside factors like poverty.
You mentioned something we went past real quickly. The current interim superintendent, Roderick Richmond, who was put in place after Marie Feagins was terminated, is he the interim? And are you guys going to do a superintendent search?
So I've had that question asked of me, and I think when we appointed him, what we did say is that our intent was to appoint him for 18 months for him to stabilize the district. And that we would come back after we got to a point, at least I think after the school year starts, and evaluate what direction we need to go in. And I think that's what we'll need to do.
And you were, for the search that brought Marie Feagins here was, 2 years? It kind of fits and starts. It came on the back of Joris Ray, resigning, but being pushed out amid a whole lot of accusations. It was a pretty bad situation. Do you think, is the school system going to go into a search at the end of this 18 months? Do you know? What's your preference?
It's something for us to evaluate. It's a very big position, and I think it's something that may warrant having a search, but at the same time, we have to be there when we get there. And so Dr. Richmond, he's in this position right now. I do believe our school district needs some stabilization. I didn't want us to be here at this moment, but I believe in the value of having a superintendent who is being responsive to the board and to bring that stabilization for our community.
One more thing, and before I go to Laura, are you termed out next year, or are you eligible to run again? Are there term limits on school boards?
There are no term limits
Okay.
currently on school boards.
You mentioned you're tired. Have you made a decision about running again?
Oh, you're asking all the good questions, aren't you? This seat is up for re-election come 2026. I'm still weighing all of my options.
Okay. I want to go back to a thing I've mentioned on the show before. This is inside, or maybe people have forgotten. When Joris Ray, the former superintendent before Marie Feagins, was removed, and you were on the board at that time, president or head of the board at some portion in there, the findings were never released. And so when I sit here as
I don't think the investigation ever continued.
The investigation was stopped. The findings weren't
yeah.
released. He resigned. He was paid, $400,000 to $500,000. It frustrated a ton of people that. Under the accusations that were there, that he would get that kind of payout. And what exactly did the investigation find, and why would that not be made public?
I can't tell you what the investigation would find because it didn't reach that point. We did not have anything to report out. There was nothing to share. I never saw anything personally, and it was that recommendation among all legal counsel involved, from the administration to the personal legal counsel, to move forward as the board did.
But isn't that part of what frustrates people about the board and the two striking out twice on 2 different superintendents? Is there's this kind of a lot of noise, and then in the case of Marie Feagins, a lot of really public meetings, and they were videoed, and that's good, that's transparent. But it even then, as somebody who follows this pretty closely, I wasn't entirely sure why Marie Feagins was fired. The lack of clarity on these two decisions, I think, does give people, I hear from it, and I guess as a taxpayer, I feel some of it personally, like, it just seems like, why are these decisions being made? Can't it be more transparent, more clear? And again, for me, and a lot of people I've heard from, it started with the Joris Ray decision, because the investigation wasn't completed, spent a lot of money. Board members apparently didn't even see the findings, and yet he was paid $500,000 amid accusations that were not good.
At that time, first of all, the contract was very akin to what previous superintendents had had, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. As far as urban superintendents, there's a very short timeline in which they serve, because it's a very hard job. And so this happens all across the country, like I said, not unique to this district. And Dr. Ray made the choice that he wanted to step aside, and that was what was accepted by the attorneys.
Any response on that?
And that was in the contract. I think you alluded to that.
Yes.
So we were following the contract. And in both instances, we were following the contract. Okay. And so, and the contract is clear if it's something that mutually, which is what happened in your case, you can do a negotiation. If it's for cause, it's for cause. You are fired, you are terminated, and you don't get any money for that. So I think what we want people to understand is what we said. I was very clear in my statement that I both released to the press, and also that I read onto the record on January 14th, my reasons, in addition to the reasons stated in the resolution, which I know people had concerns about that, but if you really look at it, and that's me, how I look at it, the crux of that was that Dr. Feagins had a problem with misrepresentation and not accurately depicting the truth. And that is a problem. When you are an employee of a 9-member board, we have to be able to trust you. And there were things that we could not trust. And there were also just some things around our academics, our operations, that I think I clearly outlined in that January 14th statement.
Well, I got to jump in there and push back a little bit on that, because
you did not vote to remove Marie Feagins.
I did not.
Yeah.
And I believe that she was doing what she came to do, what the previous body had hired her to do, and she was on track. She just didn't get enough time to even begin to implement anything, really. And so 4 months before when this new board came on, and things started to change. So it was just what happened then. I'm at a point now where I'm like, how do we just move forward? I can't continue to look back at the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and just saying, what can we do now to move forward as a district, to take the information that we have to try to help children? That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Laura.
And I should make 2 clarifications. I think that the state law that would change your board seats also applies to Knox County, but Knox County has already synced those elections up, just for our viewers to know. And also the county commission, through its resolution supporting that state law, would add term limits, but those do not yet apply to your seats. One of the other things that this board is trying to tackle right now, in addition to moving forward with the strategic plan, is facilities. So many people have questions about this. We've reported about the Bureau Veritas reports that the district had put together that shows at least $1.4 billion of deferred maintenance over the next 10 years. And this is just something that hasn't, had a really strong plan in the last several years. There's a resolution co-sponsored by you, Board Member McKinney, to bring a plan, or for Interim Superintendent Richmond to bring a plan to the board by September 1st. Is that still your expectation? I'll start with that.
So I will say this on the record: we got a little behind, the board did, in making sure that we had all of the right people onto that of facilities ad hoc committee. So we will be meeting for the first time on August 13th. And then we will make a decision. We'll bring to the board, the full board, whether we would recommend pushing it back a little bit so that we have a robust plan that we've actually given some time to, giving folks time to actually take part in and discuss. So that may not be September 1st, but the idea is that it will be done no later probably than to October, because according to our policy, if we're going to start closing, we got to start that process in November.
And I guess to clarify that, and I'd like to hear from both of you on this, what you expect the administration to bring to this process and what you expect the committee to bring. Is this a situation where you would like to bring a plan from the administration for this committee to weigh in on and kind of fill out a little bit. From these two pieces of information, whatever the committee puts together and whatever interim superintendent Richmond's team brings, talk to me about how you will use both of those things to make a decision about what the final plan should be.
And it is the board that will make that final plan. And I see it as taking what the administration, what Dr. Richmond brings, and then input from our community stakeholders. I mean, we're all in this together. And this is a process for me when I was first elected in 2018, and there was talk about a facilities plan. At that time, that facilities plan was just looking at buildings alone and closing certain buildings. But we needed to look at the whole picture of like looking at academics and what was needed in various parts of the city to make sure that we are serving and giving the best to all of our students. So that's what's important to me. It's not just about closing buildings with low student enrollment. It's like, what are we offering our students across the district? So that's what I'll be looking for when we start having these facilities conversations.
And I think if you look at the makeup of the committee, you'll see that we're also taking into account what's the planning that's going to happen around the city and the county, so that we can, if we're thinking about closing, consolidating, or building or repurposing, what does that look like? And we can't do that in a vacuum. So we absolutely need the right stakeholders around the table, and I think we have that. And also what will be included is community at large. So this is this is a committee that is helping us to think through all of those things. If you look at the folks that are on there and the type of expertise that they have, that we're looking at this holistically.
And I want to get one follow-up in there really quickly, which is just, this is a lot of money, right? We might talk about wanting to do more things, build things out, repurpose things. All of that costs money. Closing schools is generally presented as a cost savings measure. There's all kinds of budgetary constraints at the county right now that's looking at potentially building a new jail, building a new hospital. And then we have federal funding uncertainty from changes that the Trump administration has brought. Do you think it is fair for the community to have the expectation that there is going to be new buildings and repurposing, or should they be more prepared to anticipate that the first parts of this plan might be mini closures?
All of the above, Laura. Because I'm going to say this. A budget, anyone's budget is shows what your morals and your values, and how you prioritize things. So we have to decide what we want to prioritize as a community. And so I think that will be part of the discussion that we have to have with the county.
Briefly to Michelle, because we're just a couple minutes left here. Sorry to cut
And
you off.
and it's a tough conversation. There are going to have to be schools that are closed. That just needs to be said, right? And I think at the beginning, for people to know that going in, that is something that we have to face as a community.
With a couple, I mentioned at the top this forensic audit, the thing the legislature did not get the full takeover done. Laura's written about the details about that. We did the show 2 weeks ago, so I won't go into those details, but it would very much curtail, if you haven't been following, the power and authority of the local school board here. But the audit, do you think that will be a fair and objective audit, or do you feel like it's going to be what people call a witch hunt and that it goes in with bias?
I hope that it will be fair, and who knows what they'll find? I don't think they'll find anything. We've been doing audits for years with an outside party coming in. So I don't know what they're looking for, but I don't think they'll find anything.
So I hope it's fair, reasonable, and objective. I don't know, because I don't know what the extent of it is. I don't know who's doing it. I really don't know when they're going to get started. But what I do know is what I heard 2 weeks ago, is that they're anticipating very happily and gleefully that they're going to find something. And so in my mind, it's probably the latter of the two. And
the audit will be, and Laura can correct me, it'll be done by an outside party, but it's being run through the comptroller's office, the state comptroller's office.
Comptroller's office, yes.
And if I say really quickly, I'm open to it, because we don't have anything to hide.
Okay.
We just want to know that it's fair, reasonable, and objective.
Well, another thing that happened this week, we do a whole show on this, and we probably will try to, is that the contract for pre-K, the federal Head Start program, a $30 million a year contract, went back to Porterleaf and was taken away from the Memphis-Shelby County schools. Do you support that decision?
Well, the decision is made, and so if you keep focused on what you're supposed to keep focused on, which is the children, whomever's running it, then we need to be supporting each other.
Okay. And Porterleaf is coming on the show. From your point of view, I mean, and part of the reason the schools lost it was because of accusations, findings that there was physical kicking and jerking kids around. I mean, really awful stuff.
And just to add that happened over the last, I think, 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I first came on the board, I talked about that, and I asked that we have an A, B, and C a way out plan. And I think Dr. Richmond is going to present some alternatives, and part of that will be how do we partner with Porterleaf, because ultimately those students are going to come into our system.
It's about 3,000 students, a $30 million contract from the federal government. Michelle McKissick, the board and the system is under immense pressure from the state. We had the State Senator Brent Taylor, Representative Mark White on the show 2 weeks ago, very critical of the board and the system. They are pushing forward with a takeover that would essentially, there would still be a local school board, but would have little to no power, and it would instead be an appointed board by the state and others, depending on how it all shakes out next session. There's a forensic audit that's about to start as part of that effort by the state. County Commission is moving to change the terms and shorten some members' terms. That doesn't affect you. We've got the third superintendent in X number of years who is an interim, the Marie Feagins thing, the Joris Ray thing. How do you grade yourself as a school board, and is this pressure and criticism fair?
I think we are a work in progress. I don't want to use a letter grade because it doesn't tell the full story. But we have been through a whole lot. The community has been through a whole lot over the last few years. And I think it's extremely premature to talk about taking over a school district. We're the largest school district in the state. There's a lot of challenges we face as a school district in our community with poverty. And so I think that they should look at how we're moving forward. There's been growth, but I'm certainly not in favor of the state taking over, because if you do that for us, then you have to apply that across the state.
Bring in Natalie McKinney, also a member of the board of the Memphis-Shelby County Schools.
Yes, I think that I agree with Board Member McKissack. It's a work in progress. You have 4 new board members who came and are dedicated to making sure that this school system is the great school system that we know it will and can be. I think that we had some challenges that we had to face early on, and we did what we needed to do. Yes, we do need to continue our work. We need to work with Dr. Richmond on an academic plan. We need to work amongst ourselves with setting goals, and we need to work with Dr. Richmond in then addressing a strategic plan for strategic priorities. So we've got work to do, and just like any other board would.
Dr. Richmond being the interim superintendent,
yes,
who's there now, and you guys did a contract through 18 months. But let me bring in Laura Testino from the Daily Memphian now.
Sure. County commissioners are considering implementing a state law that passed this last year that would add term limits to all school board members and abridge the terms of the newest school board members, impacting you specifically, Board Member Natalie McKinney. Would you support a legal challenge should this law take effect?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she said it well, because what applies to one should apply to all. And if this is something that won't apply to the municipal school districts around us, Germantown, Collierville, Arlington, Millington, and across the state, then that's singling us out, and that's not right. And I definitely would support taking that to court.
The audit that I mentioned earlier, it will run through the state's comptroller's office. It'll be an outside auditor. Do you guys think that, when Brent Taylor and Mark White were on the show, they talked about things they kind of really essentially expect to be found, potential fraud. I mean, they paint a very grim picture of what this audit could find. Are you expecting, and do you think it'll be a fair audit, I guess is the main question?
Well, the one thing is that I expect it to be fair and that it is transparent and reasonable. I have no idea what it is because we haven't been contacted about what it is. But that's my expectation, and I welcome it because I don't think they'll find anything.
Michelle McKissack.
We have been doing audits as a school district for many years with an outside party that comes in and looks over everything. So I welcome it. That's what we're here for. We're a public entity. But to go in there looking for fraud and saying that it's already there and you don't even know anything, that's, yeah.
With just a minute left, we know that one of the things that the school district and school board is taking up right now is a plan for facilities that would largely close schools and potentially come up with ideas for building new ones. Tell listeners what they should expect to hear from that plan and when they should expect to see it, please.
So you should expect to hear input from the administration and from these group of experts that we put together about what this plan should look like and how we should proceed. And it's getting input from our relevant stakeholders and experts in coming up with a holistic plan to determine what we do with our buildings in a way that does not infringe on community.
And we also just need to embrace the community. There's going to be some tough conversations and some closures because it's just needed. A lot of buildings are under-enrolled.
When those buildings close, I mean, some of them get blighted. Some of them become, really problematic in neighborhoods. Does the school board, the school system have a responsibility to keep those buildings safe, secure, well lit, even if they're not used?
Well, that's what we aim to do currently. I mean, so that's something that wouldn't change, but we have to look at that as all a part of our facilities conversation of how we're going to deal with buildings that are no longer being operated as schools.
And I appreciate that our current administration, Dr. Richmond, understands that and is coming up with some unique ways to make sure that occurs.
Yeah. We could talk about so much more. We thank you very much for being here and talking through all these things. Thank you, Laura. Porter Leith will be on along with First Aid. I think it's in August. Next week we've got a show on affordable housing. We've got MLGW coming up with Doug McGowan and Ursula Madden, and then also Shandale Ryan, the head of Downtown Memphis Commission. That's all in coming weeks. If you missed any of this episode or past episodes, you can go to WKNO.org, YouTube, Daily Memphian to get the video, or you can download the full podcast. It's called the podcast, Eric. The podcast of the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week.